I call to order the East Brunswick Township Council Agenda Action Meeting for April 22nd, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and also we're going to have a moment of silence for the victims of the terrorist attack on Sunday morning in Sri Lanka. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Have a seat, please. Ms. Perry, can you please call the roll?
Councilman McAvoy.
Here.
Councilman Spadafino.
Present.
Councilwoman Sullivan.
Here.
Councilman Wendell.
Here.
Council President Stanley.
Here.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as required under Chapter 231 PL 1975, specifying the time, date, location, and to the extent known, the agenda, by posting a copy on the Municipal Building Public Notice Bulletin Board located in the main lobby, providing a copy to the Home News Tribune and Sentinel newspapers, posting a copy on the Township's website, and by filing a copy in the office of the Township Clerk in accordance with the certification which will be entered in the minutes.
Thank you. Tonight, we will start the evening with a proclamation, which is going to be read by Councilwoman Sullivan for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, April 2019.
Proclamation Sexual Assault Awareness Month, April 2019. Whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month and the observance of Denim Day are intended to draw attention to the fact that sexual violence is widespread and has public health implications for every community member, including lifelong mental health impact. And whereas sexual assault, sexual abuse, and sexual harassment greatly impact our community, as statistics indicate that every 98 seconds, someone in the United States is sexually assaulted, and every 11 minutes, the victim is a child. And whereas prevention is possible, so we must work together to educate our community about what could be done to stop sexual violence while supporting survivors, and whereas staff and volunteers of anti-violence and prevention programs encourage every person to speak out when witnessing acts of violence, however small, and to challenge the social norms that continue to perpetrate a culture of violence. And whereas with leadership, dedication, encouragement, there is compelling evidence that we can be successful in reducing sexual violence through increased awareness, prevention education focused on increasing gender equity, health, relationships, and bystander intervention, and holding perpetrators who commit acts of violence responsible for their actions. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Brad J. Cohen, Mayor of the Township of East Brunswick, do hereby proclaim April 2019 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in the Township of East Brunswick, and urge citizens to support service programs in the belief that the community members must be part of the solution to end sexual violence, and encourage everyone to wear blue jeans on Wednesday, April 24th, 2019, Denim Day, to show your support against sexual violence. Given under my hand in the great sale of the Township of East Brunswick, the 22nd day in April in the year 2019, Brad J. Cohen.
Thank you, Councilman. Moving on to the agenda session, seeing none, we're going to move on to the public hearing. Can I please get a motion for the following ordinance 19-08, amending Section 3A of Bond Ordinance Number 19-03 of the Township of East Brunswick in the County of Middlesex, New Jersey, finally adopted February 11, 2019, in order to include additional properties?
Motion to adopt.
Motion by Councilman Wendell. Can I get a second?
Councilman Spadafino.
Second by Councilman Spadafino. I'm opening up discussion to the public. Is anyone from the public wishing to speak on this ordinance and this ordinance only? Seeing none, I shall close the public portion. Any discussion on the council? Councilman McAvoy.
If I may, Council President, address this to our attorney, Mr. Baker.
Sure.
So as I understand it, we are amending the Baden ordinance. This is our second reading?
Correct.
Second reading on the $15 million that is to be used to include in the additional properties in the Loman's Plaza that were clarified for me last week. Is there anything further that I need to know about this?
No, that's, would allow the funds that were previously authorized, not just to be used for what we commonly refer to as the Gap Mall
Right.
area.
It's now.
But to be used for the properties in the Lowman's Mall
Right.
area.
Okay, thank you.
Any other further discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Perry, can you please call the roll?
Councilman McAvoy?
No.
Councilman Spadafino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilman Wendell?
Yes.
Council President Stanley?
Yes. Moving on to ordinance 19-09, can I get a motion for the following? Approving a deed of easement between the Township of East Brunswick and Amon Garas for the access easement along a portion of Block 66, lots 1 and 2.
Motion to adopt.
Motion by Councilman Wendell.
Second.
Second by Councilman McAvoy. I'm opening up to the public for discussion on this ordinance and this ordinance only. Is anyone from the public wishing to speak on this ordinance? Seeing none, I will close the public portion. And any discussion from council? Seeing none, Ms. Perry, can you please call the roll?
Councilman McAvoy?
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilman Wendell?
Yes.
Council President Stanley?
Yes. Moving on to our reports. Mayor?
A couple of things, Council President. First, I want to wish everybody a happy Easter and happy Passover for those who celebrate. Yesterday, there was the Easter egg hunt, which was sponsored by the PBA, which was delayed a day because of the rain on Saturday. But it was a pretty good turnout despite the last-minute notice. And the kids were all happy, even though they all took off before the go sign, and there was no way of getting them back after they were out. So, but it was a lot of fun. The big news for everybody is that the final two contracts that were outstanding that needed to be resolved with the PBA and the SOA, which are two unions representing our Department of Public Safety, have been resolved, and hopefully tonight will be decided by the council in their vote to accept that contract. They were ratified unanimously by both unions, and as any negotiation goes, there's some things that the town gets, some things that the union gets, and at the end of the day, we all walk away feeling like we've accomplished something, and we're either mutually happy or mutually unhappy, but that's a good place to be, and for the most part, I could say that it was a great opportunity to work with our Department of Public Safety and come up with terms that are going to I think, keep us in a good place for the next couple of years until the next round. And so I congratulate them on working diligently towards that goal. And I think that the town should be pretty happy that we got a decent deal, and at the same time, one that preserves the dignity of the fine Department of Public Safety that we have here.
Thank you, Mayor. From our town administrator?
Yeah, just one item. Just the township employees will be participating in the Denim Day this week, as Councilwoman Sullivan said, on Wednesday, April 24th. We're also, we take a collection and we donate it to the Crisis Center.
Thank you. Tomorrow.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to address one of the items on the consent agenda, 16589. It's the authorization to include a property on Harts Lane in a non-condemnation redevelopment area. This was a parcel which most of us know as the Ace Auto Parts parcel. It's been cleaned up lately. Actually looks pretty good considering how that area has looked in the past. And at one point, I think 2-3 years ago, this area was to be included in the redevelopment area. The property owner at that time asked that it be taken out, so the council, 2015, amended the ordinance and took it out of the redevelopment area. Property owners come forward to the council. They have plans for developing the property, perhaps warehouse and distribution centers on the property, so they now would like it to be included in the redevelopment area, again, as a non-condemnation redevelopment area, since it's voluntarily being put into the redevelopment zone. This resolution would just allow the planning board to conduct a study to determine if it could go there. One of the benefits of developing in that area is if they come before the redevelopment agency or the planning board, they'll be required to do Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental studies, so that if there are any issues in the property, that would have to be taken care of as part of redevelopment.
Thank you.
This is a good thing.
This is a good thing. Thank you. And just for clarifying, the owners requested that they be put
That's
into
correct.
the redevelopment. Okay, thank you. From our town clerk?
Nothing.
Okay. Anyone on council? Any reports, committee, board meeting? Councilman McAvoy?
The East Brunswick Cable Television and Telecommunications Advisory Committee met, and we received an update on complaints, which were minimal and were rectified by the administration. Dave Ambrosi reported on a smooth transition from the EBTV from the library to the municipal department. There was no representation, as has been the modum of operandi before I became the representative to the committee, as Dr. Spadafino is acknowledging. And it lends itself to a discussion with regard to our quasi-monopoly of Comcast, and a lot of people would like to see a little more Verizon involved in the process. Pluses and minuses were discussed on both, and the evening was adjourned. Water Advisory Council, we welcomed a new chair in Chan Caldwell, as well as a new vice chair in Dottie G. Over at the water pump, which is a learning experience for me, that supplies a host of trucks and a couple of super tankers with water. It was mentioned to all of us at the meeting that it's time to take a look at those prices, because it looks as if they're very low, and maybe we can make some money by raising the prices. Shared services between the Board of Education and the municipality with regard to water being sent to the East Brunswick High School football complex began after the meeting and during this week, and I happened to drive by the high school and saw them working there. Didn't stop to put my 2 cents in, but just saw that they were working on this. The main attraction was the problem with the water being sent from, you can always chime in on this, Jim, if you know, at a particular location, and the water going to the snack shack, which has a water fountain, something that I drank from repeatedly for 36 years, and I'm doing fine, so I don't think it's a major problem. But even if it's a small problem, this governing body is going to look into it, and so the Water Advisory Council made reference of it. Please make note that May is flushing month in town, and you can go to the Township website to find out exactly when things are going to be flushed in your neighborhood. Speaking of websites, here are a couple of websites to follow that will be up on the TV screen, so the actual people who are here this evening can rewatch the broadcast tomorrow. And both of these websites give you detailed information on any and every facet of water that you want to know about East Brunswick Township, and they are at ebwaterutility.org and New Jersey DEP/Water Watch, and I found the Water Watch one to be very interesting, because you just type in East Brunswick and then you get a comprehensive review of water in our community. One final conversation was spearheaded by Mr. Losick and Mr. Smith. Mr. Losick is our Department of, help me out on the title.
DPW and water sewer.
Okay, and Mr. Smith, who is one of the main lead workers. So the two of them run the meeting, and they gave us a comprehensive, thorough review of water quality in East Brunswick. inspections and testing, meter maintenance, permits and usage, and water breaks. And finally, kudos and thank you to our new CEO, Ms. Angel Albanese, who gave us a very, very, very thorough data bank on anything related to water. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman McAvoy. I just have a question for our town administrator. Going back to the cable, what is the history? Why is other cable companies not allowed to kind of come into East Brunswick or unable to come into East Brunswick? Like Verizon, I believe they're on the...
Well, there's two types of franchises you can get in the state of New Jersey. A local franchise, which is kind of what Comcast does, and Optimum, or previous Cablevision, TKR, if you're dating back to my younger days. So they can get local franchises. So years ago, the Township of East Brunswick granted a franchise agreement to Comcast. Verizon has a statewide franchise agreement under the state BPU. They've been doing build-outs over some point in time. They are picking and choosing what areas they're doing the work in, and more importantly, the sections of the town that generally have it are linked with where their switch offices are. So in the northern section of the town is where I believe they have coverage. You could get FiOS there because they're kind of linked in with the New Brunswick switch. So when they go and modify the switch office, that enables the capability. Let's face it, they go into the most densely populated areas because they can get the most customers. So it's not a surprise that they upgraded the New Brunswick switch because there's, a lot of people over there in the city. So you can't force them to update switches in Spotswood or in South River. I know that's where they have some switching equipment, including right here on Route 18. But over time, hopefully, they'll continue their build-out as they move along. Cable companies go to the BPU for their approvals. One of the major complaints that we get in the office is it's too expensive. But if you compare Cablevision to Verizon outside of when they run specials, it's pretty much the same, even throughout the country. So
is Optimum available?
No, it's not. They do not. Generally, if they would have to come in and run all the wires to individual houses, and if they're not going to get the lion's share of the activity, they're not going to run wires.
Okay.
They're basically coming in and taking over the cable business since they bought Cablevision.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, Councilman Spadafino.
Okay.
Apology accepted. Just for those people that might be interested, I want to make sure that you are aware that this week's planning board meeting will be at Wednesday, April 24th at 7:30 instead of 8 o'clock, and it will be at Memorial School instead of in this room. There will be a continuing discussion of the HD Summerhill Road project. Thank you.
What was that date again, Councilman?
Wednesday, April 24th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman?
I just had somebody feedback about, how come half of it got Verizon, the other half didn't?
What?
Didn't like some people get Verizon, just,
Yeah, because
I can tell you who's got it. The Franklin Park area, I say Franklin Park, Riva Avenue, which is at the Franklin Park switching station.
Right.
And then you got Lawrence Brook, which is at New Brunswick.
Right.
And then Spotswood switch, so the President Streets and all of those have
and
it.
by Chittick also they have it.
And so it's a function of where
The switching
Verizon
thing.
FiOS is building out their network.
Right.
Okay.
It's a huge capital investment to put that equipment into the locations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Moving on to the public portion. If anyone from the public wishing to speak, please do so. State your name and limit your comments to 5 minutes and address the chair only. Anyone from the public wishing to speak tonight? Good evening.
Deborah Kornavaca, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Council President, Mayor, Council members. I want to thank the Mayor. I want to start by thanking the Mayor for your recent clarifications around the proposals of redevelopment on Route 18, specifically with respect to moving the municipal center and the library. One of the most wonderful things about the library is how engaged our community has been, and I think by the rapid response that we've seen from many of our community members, they're engaged and want to participate in the process. And I think the clarification that the Mayor gave both in the letter in writing and in the attendance of the board meeting recently was really helpful in terms of setting people a little bit at ease, to clarify that what we have right now are proposals, and I'm using my words, they can be parsed differently, but proposals, not concrete plans, and that we're open to a participatory and inclusive process to reach a final outcome that is supported by the majority of the community. So I'm really grateful for that, and I think it's done wonders. On equal footing, I'd like from the perspective of the library just to state a few things for clarification as well. The first is that the library, since my inception on the board, which is, I don't want to admit that I think it's been almost a decade now, we've never requested a new building. We've certainly looked at ways to expand and grow. I know prior to my tenure on the board, they had looked at a second story, which really wasn't feasible. But there have been expansions over the year, but we've really never requested a new building. Not that we're not willing to entertain it, but it's certainly not been a priority of ours that we've geared for. The second is, to our knowledge, and if we're incorrect, we would love to know, there are no significant structural defects to the building. There's nothing that warrants us needing to get out. It's not sinking, it's not got cracked foundations. If I'm wrong, please let us know, but we're functioning under those understanding. The third is that we've done a lot of work over the years, and recently in the past 2 to 3 years, to upgrade, because we do get high volume of use, to rearrange the library space to meet the needs of the community. There's constantly requests for a more, kind of small study space. We have those rooms. And, one of the places that we know we still have large requests is for the children's spaces. And I mean that from the earliest, youngest infant who walks in all the way through our teens, and the tweens kind of feel frozen out in between. And so we've really been focusing a lot of energy recently on how to provide for them better. And also we've addressed, we are trying to address certain structural things like the adult quiet space is right next to the children's space, which was maybe a oversight when we first arranged it that way. So we're looking to make some corrective action to provide for all the different constituent groups who use the library on a regular basis. We first unveiled kind of what for us is a vision of what that could look like last October with the Foundation Gala, and we're so thrilled at the work and the Foundation is doing and for all of your support and participation in their events. Those boards that we had out at the Gala, and they're available in the library for anybody to see anytime, are really visions of what it could be like. They're not concrete plans, but they provide us with kind of a guiding star for from which we can raise money, and the Foundation is going to be embarking on a capital plan of fundraising with the possibility of being able to capitalize on a bonding process through the state to have matching funds, and we're really excited about that potential. We first learned about the potential of the move in this past March, so last month. And at the time, it was a little bit of a surprise to us, but we didn't feel like that should alter our current plans of raising money and looking towards expansion and better use of space, because ultimately, if we were to move, those considerations would apply to the new space. Anything that we learn from thinking about and community participation in this process now, I think would help us if we're looking towards designing new spaces. We might even have fewer limitations. So we don't see it as a reason to slow down or stop what we're doing right now, acknowledging that there may be a course correction along the way if the community decides that moving the library is in the best interest. So we're full steam ahead in making sure that we continue our commitment to meet the needs of the community. We want to work closely with the council, the redevelopment committee, and everybody involved. And that just is my last piece here on the library's perspective, which is that when we learned about it, we did immediately ask that we could be part of kind of a working group or a task force, call it what you will, where library staff, board members, community members could get involved to have these conversations about what a possible move would look like, what it is we would like to see in spaces that we don't have now, what is potential in this space versus another space. The library has a long history of really good community engagement from the first strategic planning session that I was involved in probably 5 or 6 years ago through the second round. We've brought in hundreds of people through guided conversation to get input, and people like coming to the library, so when we host events about community input, they're generally well attended. So we would like to partner with you in this discussion, because we feel like when you have partners, you have stronger outcome. When you have people who feel like something's being done to them, you tend to have judges on you, right? So we want to be partners. On that, I want to end what I have to say on behalf of the library and just say I have a few specific questions as a constituent, as a voter, as a resident of the community. I think it's a really big step.
It's up to the council president.
Okay.
I'll just be very brief on this. Really big step to move from a residential area to a commercial area for a library, and I'd like us to dig in what the implications are about use of space, safety, and all of those things. The second thing is related to that is traffic, which, not surprisingly, when we did studies on strategic planning years ago, traffic was one of the biggest things that bothered people about the community. It's probably not surprising to you, but one of the nice things about the library was identified was that you could get there without being on major thoroughfares. So I really do want us to take an in-depth look at what traffic pattern would be like and access to the library. The third thing that is on my mind is that developers, and I'm not an expert in development, but they generally function in a for-profit world, and I am concerned about what kind of space and priority they would give to a nonprofit institution of a library when they're developing maximizing profit across a redevelopment plan. That may be unfounded, but that's a question and concern I have. The next one is ownership. It's not clear to me, and I'm trying to understand it better, and I'm sure you all can explain it to me better, who really would own something like the municipal center moved over to a development-owned land and property, and who would have say over the building and what could be done. Right now, we work in conjunction with the township to make modifications and possible expansions. Would that still be true? Because I'm thinking about the future and down the line, like what opportunities would we have? Who has domain and ownership over space like that? And then the last piece is just over in the long run financing and where the money comes from. And, in order for us to make sure that we have something better than to move, do we have the funds for it? What would the costs be? And we haven't worked out any costs like that. We've worked out costs for what renovations here would look like, but not for what new would look like there. So I would really want us to understand that to make sure we're not overcommitting. Having said that, those are just the type of questions I have. I think we can get answers to all of these if we entertain in kind of a more robust dialogue, and we look forward to working with you on all of it.
Thank you.
Thank you for the extension of time. I'm grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
Hi, my name's Wilbur Pan, live at 223 Milltown Road. So I just wanted to share with the council something that I noted at the library a couple months ago now. I think it was the end of February when there was a presentation on Kristallnacht with the people who actually were at and survived in the event. The room was packed, and for me, I was curious as to why the organizers of this event chose to have it at the library, because in my mind, I thought a more obvious place would be EBJC or one of the other synagogues around in the neighborhood. And so I was able to catch part of the event, and afterwards, I went up to the people who had organized it, and I talked to a woman named Christine Sullivan. I don't know if it's a relation or not, but and I asked, why did you have this event at the library? And I explained my preconception that something like this would be of interest to the Jewish community, and therefore should probably would be held at a synagogue or a place like that. And the immediate response was, well, no, we didn't want to hold it there because we wanted the community to hear this story, and the library is the community center of East Brunswick. And that was said without hesitation or any thought or prep. It was like the automatic response. And I thought that was good because I think it's a really good it was good to hear because it's a really clear reflection of how the community sees the library. They don't see it just as a place to check out books or as a place to get on the internet, even though those are the things that people use the library for. The community really looks at the library as the community center. And it's clear to me now, having talked to a lot of people, that this has been the community's vision of the library for decades, even before I moved to, we moved to East Brunswick. And I think the response from the citizens in town as to, the thought of moving the library, which has been pretty much been overwhelmingly negative from what I can see, stems from that vision that the community has for the library. And so I think any decisions that are going to be made regarding the library should be made with that thought in mind. And like I said, I just wanted the council to hear this story because it was very moving to me, and I thought it was worth sharing with y'all. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'm closing the public portion. Moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any items that wish to be separated from the consent agenda?
E and F.
E and F. Pulling E and F from the consent agenda. Can I get a motion for the following items, A through D and G through M?
Motion approved.
Motion by Councilman Wendell. Can I get a second? Second by Councilwoman Sullivan. Ms. Perry, can you please call the roll?
Sure. Councilman McAvoy?
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilman Wendell?
Yes.
Council President Stanley?
Yes. Can I get a motion for item E, 16589, authorizing the Township Planning Board to undertake a preliminary investigation to determine whether blocks 31, lot 2.03 is a non-condemnation area in need of redevelopment?
Motion approved.
Motion by Councilman Wendell, second. Second by Councilman Spadafino. Open to discussion.
Yes, thank you, Council President. So upon reading the agenda and digesting the agenda and taking notes on the agenda, I was a little taken back with regard to not having enough information regarding this particular resolution. And so the first thing that I think I would like this council to do under your leadership, Mr. President, Council President, is to bring, not to every meeting, but maybe to every other meeting, maybe the first meeting of the month, the director of the redevelopment agency, so that he knows that he has to be here and can give us a prepared statement on what's going on. I don't think it's fair of us to turn to Councilman Wendell, even though Councilman Wendell's on the committee. I don't think it's fair that he has to be put on the spot for comments about the redevelopment plan month after month in my short time period. By the same token, the director of the redevelopment agency is being paid a handsome salary, and that's why I don't feel it would be out of line for me to request that Mr. Hughes come to our meetings to give us an update on what is going on and to entertain questions that we all might have in a, I'm getting a little tired of this word, and a little more transparent behavior, because we are transparent. Everything that happens up here is discussed clearly by the council and then relayed to the community. I also believe that Mr. Baker gave us some additional information regarding this particular resolution, and therefore a lot of the things that I had prepared in terms of questions, I had contacted Mrs. Perry regarding Resolution 1566-7, which takes us back to September of 2015. Then I wanted clarification on Resolution 1547-4, which takes us back to November 10th of 2014, and that was clarified in a nutshell to me by Mr. Baker. I did make a run over to Ace Auto Wreckers today to see firsthand what this story was all about, since it surely was not clear enough for me. I made sure I made the phone call first to make sure that it was within the legal ramifications of being a councilman and going over to talk to somebody who's involved. And the gentleman, Rodney Krasik? Good enough?
Close enough.
Was an audience for me and answered all the questions and the comments that I had. And as Mr. Baker said, there's a bona fide plan. There was a plan that he showed me, that this would be something that I hope that would be provided to all of us in the future by having Mr. Hughes here. Because this redevelopment process is just so crucial to the future of our community. We are truly at this crossroads with a outstanding vision on the part of the mayor to take us, to lead us down this path that's going to change our community. However, as we make each single step, I think it's paramount that we know exactly what's going on. So a small document like this turned into 3 pages of notes for me. However, the Ace Wrecking Company, they want to be part of our community, and they are welcoming what we are going to be doing here with regard to authorizing the planning board to take the next step. There was a lot of conversation today about the environment of his property and what has happened in the past 5 years. And I'll just wrap it up by saying that it is paramount for all of us to do our homework, but I also believe that the classroom setting of having Mr. Hughes here is going to be very helpful. Thank you, Council President.
Councilman McAvoy, I agree with you. I see no problem in having the director here from the agency to answer our questions. At least once a month, he can come. And for right now, since we have the chairman,
I'd like to
respond with any questions you may have.
Just to give you, just to add some background to that, and I agree with you 100%. And when we brought on the executive director, that was one of the indications that we said to him. And you can have you have my word as well as the president's here that we'll have him at a meeting once a month to give us some updates. I appreciate that, and I agree with you.
It's not fair, Jim, to have you doing it all the time.
Now, just to give you a little bit of background on this particular property. This is a property that was included in the original study under Mayor Stahl. When Mayor Stahl proposed redevelopment to the town and chose certain areas, these areas were studied. These properties, the 3 properties along this road, were included in that study and met the criteria at the time. They were studied by the planning board. The planning board agreed with the report and suggested to this council that we include them in an area of needed redevelopment.
Those 3 properties, Jim, but I recall because there's a lot of people who recall. I recall Mr. Giancola coming up.
Sure, there were the 3 property owners were here, and they asked not to be part of it.
Right.
And the council at that time obliged them.
Right.
And pulled their properties out and moved forward with the other properties. Just to give you some background on this, as the resolution states, this is only allowing, what we're doing is we're making a recommendation to the planning board that they study this property. There is no action being taken here. The only action that's occurring is that we're making a recommendation to the planning board that this property be studied. This property owner came to the town, redevelopment agency or the mayor's office, he came to the town and the engineering department and asked about having his property added to the. So really, at this point, the redevelopment agency has not taken any action on this property at all.
No action to be taken.
There is no action to be taken.
Planning board.
It's this governing body that refers it now to the planning board and lets the planning board study the property, have the planner study it, and then make a presentation and recommendations. So nothing, I mean, again, transparency is what we're all about, and I want everybody to be aware that there's nothing happening here that wouldn't happen until after the planning board studied the property and came back to us and made a recommendation.
Planning board guy.
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know, I too had the question. I called Mr. Criscola up. He explained everything to me, and he said it would be the planning board's decision, and it would come back to us. So it's like 2 votes there. One to let the planning board vote on it, the second time it comes back. I just wanted to let you know that he was very helpful.
Mayor?
I just wanted to clarify 2 things also, that number one, when the first time in 2015, when Mayor Stahl sought to declare various sections of Route 18 as areas of need of redevelopment, that process, paying for planners, paying for the professionals, was borne by the town. This time it's being requested by the owner of the property himself, recognizing that he may benefit from potential tax savings and tax programs, and that redevelopment designation may actually help him. And he's now being asked to pay for the costs of all of the work that's going to be involved, whereas the first time we paid for it. And the second thing, I don't know how anybody wants to define a handsome salary, but Mr. Hughes makes $15,000 a year for his job.
Councilman Spadafino?
I just have a, like, off-the-wall type question to ask Mr. Baker, because this is something procedurally I've not experienced here before. So what would happen if this council decided to vote no on this and voted this down? What would be the recourse for this individual and his property?
There's no recourse.
It's over. So if we voted it down, it would be dead in the water?
Yes.
Okay.
No, he could still do it, it's just he wouldn't get any.
He could do the-
He could develop it, but it wouldn't be a redevelopment area.
Okay.
The council controls the redevelopment process along with the planning board until there's a redevelopment plan adopted by ordinance by the council after all the studies are done. Then it goes over to the redevelopment agency to implement the project.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Perry, can you please call the roll?
Councilman McAvoy?
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilman Wendell?
Yes.
Council President Stanley?
Yes. Moving on to item F, can I get a motion for the following? 16590, transferring unexpended community development block grant funds from completed projects to ongoing projects.
Motion with that.
Motion by Councilman Wendell, second by Councilwoman Sullivan. Open for discussion.
Mr. Crisculo, just got a clarification on this for the
Yes.
community?
Over the years, we get money from what's known as the Federal HUD Community Development Block Grant Program from the federal government. We apply different projects to that. After Amy Donats-Lewandowski and our CFO got together, they realized that we have some prior years that did not expend all the funds that were allocated for that. And we would like to do some enhancements to the East Brunswick Museum, some improvements there. And the project exceeds what we have in that account. So we're allowed to move those funds from those prior allocations to that particular account. And then we'll file that back to the federal government and get approval. So we're basically cleaning up old accounts and moving it into a new, usually over at a certain period of time, the federal government will close down those accounts. We're lucky they haven't. So for me, if the federal government's going to give me a grant and the funds are available, I'm going to move it into an account which I can spend for the betterhood of the township.
How much are we spending?
Thank you.
Can you expand as to how many years back this is going? And
Yeah,
what's the amount that's
starting in
2009.
2009, there's a balance of $20.82. There's a balance in 2015 of $1,895.51. 2016, there's two accounts. One is $840, another has $87 in it. In 2017, there's two accounts, one with $200 in it, and the second one has $6.25. So we'll be taking those unexpended funds and moving them to the 2017 account for the East Brunswick Museum improvements.
Total
Plus the youth
reallocation.
center.
The total reallocation is $3,049.58, which we're going to transfer into the museum account.
Plus the youth center.
Plus the youth center.
There a second page?
No, it's the third whereas, or fourth whereas, coming down. Youth Center needs additional funds to complete ADA. We just passed a resolution.
Oh, that's in the resolution.
Oh, it's in the resolution, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
We're just cleaning up some old accounts.
Councilman Spadafino?
Well, for the benefit of Councilman McAvoy and for the audience, the criteria for the use of this money in these block grants is very specific, correct?
That is correct. It's got to go in low and moderate income sections of the town by census block and tracts. They also can be used in places like the senior center, where last year, if you remember, council, we redid the senior center bathrooms. We also done work at the Daisy Center, ADA improvements over there. So there's certain areas in which you can use these funds. It's not that you can use it anywhere. I think it's a strict criteria regulated by HUD, Housing and Urban Development, part of the Community Development Grant, Block Grant Program, which is a federal program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Perry, please call the roll.
Councilman McAvoy?
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilman Wendell?
Yes.
And Council President Stanley?
Yes. Moving on to ordinances requiring a public hearing date of May 13, 2019. May I please get a motion for the following ordinance, 19-10, amending Chapter 209, Vehicles and Traffic, Section 52, Schedule 8, stop intersections of the Code of the Township of East Brunswick.
Motion to adopt.
Motion by Councilman Wendell, second by Councilwoman Sullivan. Before I open this discussion, can I get an explanation as to a little background on this ordinance?
Yes, we're going to, the traffic signals are already there on stop signs, on Icker Avenue. It needs to be codified to put the code book up to date. So they're on that road, 3rd Street, 4th Street, and 5th Street will have stop signs in both directions. Okay?
Any discussion from council? Seeing none, Ms. Perry?
Councilman McAvoy?
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilman Wendell?
Yes.
Council President Stanley?
Yes. Can I get a motion for the following ordinance, 19-11, amending ordinances fixing grades, classifications in grades, and compensation of employees of the Township of East Brunswick, covering the Municipal Employees Association, Ordinance 18-44, and covering the Professional Managers Association, Ordinance 18-44.
Motion approved.
Motion by Councilman Wendell,
Second.
second by Councilman Spadafino. Can we have an
Yes,
explanation?
the township requires, our government requires that there be a salary ordinance in place for declaring salaries and the ranges of salaries. Right now, we're cleaning up also something that we're doing. We're reorganizing the court, where the deputy court administrators will be moving into the Professional Managers Association, because at times they act as the management team in the court. The court administrator is a non-represented member, and now the two deputy court administrators will be in the Professional Managers Association, so they would have management responsibility and oversight of the employees. At this particular point in time, they're all in the MEA union, which doesn't make sense to me. All our other deputies are in that particular union, including the deputy tax assessor and various other people. So the deputies generally are in a management union, not in a normal membership union. So this is to help us facilitate that reorganization of the court at this particular time.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Perry, can you please call the roll?
Councilman McAvoy?
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilman Wendell?
Yes.
Council President Stanley?
Yes. Can I get a motion for the following ordinance 19-12, amending Chapter 3, Administration of Government, Article 7, Utilities of the Code of the Township of East Brunswick?
Motion approved.
Motion by Councilman Wendell,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Sullivan.
Yes, this particular change is for the parking utility, where we try to get the people that use the facility to follow certain rules. Right now, they're up as general rules, and the parking staff tries to get them to follow the rules. There are times where members or people that utilize the parking deck don't follow the rules, so what we're asking repeatedly, so we're asking now that the members of the parking utility will be able to issue a summons, and particularly one of the rules that they require is when the deck is loading up in the morning, it is important that the stacking occur quickly, because these buses are coming in every 5, 7, 12 minutes. So we ask people to only do head-on parking, which means they pull head-on into the space. But there are some people that just insist on stopping and backing into the space, thereby backing the traffic down the parking deck and out into the roadway. So at this particular point in time, we'd like to change the ordinance to allow the parking staff to be able to issue a summons if you do not follow the rule of parking head-on, because it's delaying the queuing of the cars getting into the parking deck and may cause somebody to miss their bus. So they need, they prefer that people just park head-on, not to issue summons, but some people just will deny it because they know they have no authority, no teeth to write a summons. At this particular time, I'm asking you to give them the authority to write a summons for not parking head-on and following the rules of the parking deck.
Questions?
It's interesting, Mr. Cosculo, how I had circled Section 1, list, letter J, number 9, which is failure to park head-on. So my questions revolved around, so is this a list of things that we are going to be enforcing that is relatively...
Those 1 through 8 are the existing items that they may write a summons for.
Right.
We are adding item 9, which is failure to park head-on in a
Right.
stall.
So now you're putting an additional burden on these employees
They've asked for it.
insofar as they're going to write a ticket. Now, the police officer writes me a ticket. You're writing me a ticket. But if, and I'm sort of laughing at this, don't you think there's going to be confrontational situations between these employees and these parking people? They want to park the car and get on that bus and go over.
They write a lot.
Wait a minute, sir. You have a fraudulent monthly parking permit here, and we got to write you up. I mean, I understand it's a way of generating money, but
It's not about generating money. This is about people following the rules.
Okay.
They write parking tickets at the transportation center all the time.
And
They
have
write
for
tickets
years.
and have from, like Mr. Baker said, for years. There are people that drive the wrong direction in the parking deck.
I
They
was just
deserve a ticket.
worried about our employees, and
Well, they've asked that we effectuate this. This request came from the utility because it's causing the stacking of the deck not to work properly. If somebody chooses to do that and they write them a summons and they come, in after work and see the summons on the car, they can come and talk to the judge.
Thank you.
Yeah, but
Yes.
I just have to, we're one of the few municipalities, I mean, this is new to me, that doesn't have the ability to write a summons from its parking officers.
We do.
We do.
We do. The only thing we're changing is
Is the head-on parking.
an additional
Oh, okay.
offense for the parking not head-on.
They're sworn in by the judge and
Okay.
everything, the
Yeah.
parking attendant.
Yeah,
And there's nothing confrontational. I mean, they would just write the ticket and put it on
that is correct.
their windshield.
That's correct.
Signs all say park head on.
There's plenty of signs that says park head
And
on.
there's videos surveillance too, right?
Right.
Yeah, so. Any other questions?
I mean, Mr. Neely at one time even revoked somebody's monthly parking for that offense. He parked head on the next day. Believe me. So we need some authority to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Ms. Perry, can you close?
Councilman McAvoy?
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilman Wendell?
Yes.
Council President Stanley?
Yes. Can I get a motion for the following ordinance 19-13, fixing the salary classifications for members of the Superior Officers Association, SOA 145A of the Township of East Brunswick?
Motion approved.
Motion by Councilman Wendell, second by
Second.
Councilwoman Sullivan.
The next two go hand in hand, as the mayor alluded to earlier, and you approved in the consent agenda. You approved the both SOA and the PBA, which is, the SOA is also a PBA affiliation at this time. So the salary ordinance needs to be modified in order to bring the salaries in the ordinance up to what you've just ratified in their contract. And this is part of the normal municipal process, salary audits of setting salaries. So you approved the contract, a memorandum of understanding. The second phase of this is then to change the ordinance to effectuate the change so we can actually pay them the salary we agreed to in the collective bargaining agreement.
Thank you.
And that goes for the next one as well, sir.
Any questions? None? Ms. Perry, can you please call the roll?
Councilman McAvoy?
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilman Wendell?
Yes.
Council President Stanley?
Yes. Can I get an ordinance, can I get a motion for the following ordinance? 19-14,
Ordinances.
fixing the salary classification for members of the Policemen's Benevolent Association, Local 145, the Township of East Brunswick.
Motion
Any-
approved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Wendell, second by Councilman Spadafino. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Perry, can you please call the roll?
Councilman McAvoy?
Yes.
Councilman Spadafino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilman Wendell?
Yes.
Council President Stanley?
Yes. Seeing there's no new business, we're moving on for the good of the cause. Anyone have anything for the good of the cause? Councilwoman Sullivan?
My office hours tomorrow will be from 12 o'clock to 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. across from the clerk's office. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to drop by.
Anyone else? Seeing none, can I get a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Wendell, second by Councilman Spadafino. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye.